Rediscovering Gita for the Modern World by Shrikant Soman. Based on essays on Gita by Sri Aurobindo. From this episode 65 we are starting new chapter 8. Sankhya and Yoga. Continued from the previous episode 64. Head you win, tail also you win. The Kshatriya's divine gamble. Current episode 65. The Gita's foundational principles, a deeper look at Sankhya and Yoga. Sankhya and Yoga, unpacking the Gita's higher solution. Beyond convention, the Gita's unique synthesis of Sankhya and Yoga. Key takeaways. The Gita's distinction, the Bhagavad Gita, establishes a crucial distinction between Sankhya and Yoga as the foundation for its higher spiritual solution, emphasizing their combined role in overcoming the bondage of works. Gita's philosophical synthesis. Unlike conventional philosophical schools, the Gita integrates Vedantic ideas with elements of Sankhya and Yoga to create a unique practical system. Beyond conventional definitions, the Gita's use of Sankhya and Yoga differs significantly from the well-known systems of Patanjali and the Sankhya Karika, which are conventionally understood as a purely subjective method and an atheistic school respectively. Action as a permanent foundation. The Gita elevates the role of action, Karma Yoga, treating it not just as a preliminary step for purification, but as a continuous and permanent foundation for the highest spiritual ascent, even after liberation. A broader, more flexible approach, the yoga described in the Gita, is not a rigid graded system like Patanjali's, but a flexible and natural process of soul development, with a wider scope that includes and surpasses the elements of other yogic schools. At this stage, Krishna moves on to the higher level solution. Here we should note that Krishna makes a very clear emphasis of Sankhya and Yoga, at the point of turning from the first and summary answer to Arjuna's difficulties as discussed in the previous chapter. It is evident in the very first words which strike the keynote of a higher spiritual solution. The teacher makes at once a distinction which is of the utmost importance for the understanding of the Gita. This is the distinction of Sankhya and Yoga. Such is the intelligence, that is, the intelligent knowledge of things and will, declared to thee in the Sankhya. Hear now this in the Yoga. For if thou art in Yoga by this intelligence, O son of Pritha, thou shalt cast away the bondage of works. This is the exact translation of the words in which the Gita announces the distinction it intends to make. We should note that the Gita is in its essence a Vedantic work. It is one of the three recognized authorities for the Vedantic teaching. It is not described as a revealed scripture like Veda. It is largely intellectual, logical and philosophical in its method. Nonetheless, it is still founded on the truth. However, it is not the directly inspired word like Veda, which is the revelation of the truth through the higher faculties of the seer. Even so, Gita is still very highly esteemed and ranked almost as the 13th Upanishad. The Vedantic ideas contained in Gita are throughout and thoroughly colored by the ideas of the Sankhya and the Yoga way of thinking. It derives from this coloring the peculiar synthetic character of its philosophy. In essence, Gita teaches primarily a practical system of yoga. It brings in metaphysical ideas only as explanatory of its practical system. It should particularly noted here that Gita does not merely declare Vedantic knowledge. It lays firm foundation of knowledge and devotion upon works. It even uplifts works to the culmination of knowledge. At the same time, the devotion to divine is at the very heart and kernel of their spirit. The Yoga of Gita initially follows the line of thinking of the analytical philosophy of the Sankhyas. It takes that as a starting point. It also keeps it as a large element of its method and doctrine, but it goes much beyond the philosophy of Sankhya. It even negatives some of the characteristic tendencies of Sankhya philosophy. Gita finds a means of reconciling the lower analytical knowledge of Sankhya with the higher synthetic and Vedantic truth. Let us now understand what the Sankhya philosophy is and what is yoga, about which Gita speaks. First, let us note what they are not. Certainly, they are not the systems which have come down to us under these names as elaborated in the Sankhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna and the Yoga aphorisms of Patanjali, respectively. The Sankhya to which Gita refers is not the system of the Karikas as is commonly understood. The conventional Sankhya admits the multiplicity of Purushas as a primal truth of being. The conventional Sankhya is in a way atheistic. It strenuously denies the one as self and Purusha. On the other hand, the Sankhya of Gita is diametrically opposite to the Sankhya as is conventionally understood. Gita affirms one as self and Purusha. It affirms that one who is also the Lord, Ishvara or Purushottama, as the cause of the universe. The Sankhya of the Gita admits and subtly reconciles the diverse theistic, pantheistic and monistic views of the universe. The yoga of Gita is not the yoga system of Patanjali. Patanjali's yoga is a purely subjective method of Raj Yoga. It is an internal discipline. It is limited, rigidly cut out, severely and scientifically graded system. It helps the mind to progressively get stilled and taken up into samadhi. Its object is to gain the temporal and eternal results of this self-exceeding, the temporal in a great expansion of the soul's knowledge and powers, the eternal in the divine union. On the other hand, the yoga of the Gita is a large, flexible and many-sided system with various elements. These are all successfully harmonized by a sort of natural and living assimilation. Raja Yoga is only one of these elements. It is not even the most important and vital of these elements. The yoga of Gita does not adopt any strict and scientific gradation. It is a process of natural soul development. It adopts a few principles of subjective poise and action. This is done in order to bring about a renovation of the soul and a sort of change, ascension, or new birth out of the lower nature into the divine. Similarly, its idea of samadhi is quite different from the ordinary notion of the yogic trance. Patanjali gives only an initial importance to works in the world. Its aim is limited to bringing about moral purification and religious concentration. On the other hand, Gita goes so far as to make works the distinctive characteristic of yoga. Action to Patanjali is only a preliminary. In the Gita, it is a permanent foundation. In Raj Yoga, action has to be put aside for all practical purposes when it achieves its desired results. At least it then ceases to be of any importance as means for the yoga. Whereas for Gita, action is a means of the highest ascent, and it continues even after the complete liberation of the soul is achieved. It is essential to clarify this difference between the conventional understanding of Sankhya and Patanjali's yoga as against that of the Gita. This is to avoid any confusion in thought that may be created by use of these familiar words. The connotation of meaning, as intended in Gita to these words, is far wider than the technical sense with which we are familiar. However, it should be noted that Gita admits the essential part of conventional Sankhya and Patanjali's yoga, insofar as it relates to a large, Catholic and universally true aspect. At the same time, Gita does not limit itself by these. Gita is not like that of the opposing schools of philosophy and yoga to these systems. It admits, and then it surpasses them. Sankhya of Gita is the Catholic Vedantic Sankhya. It is similar to the great Vedantic synthesis of the Upanishads and also to the Puranas at a later stage.